Welcome to our daily reflection for this Friday, September 27th. And of course, every Friday we remember Good Friday when Jesus died for us. So we make a sacrifice today for a loved one, for somebody in need, for the church. Give up meat, give up a meal, and make a sacrifice or do some extra almsgiving. And today the readings might appear on the surface to be rather depressing. Jesus will tell his disciples that he's heading to Jerusalem, and they're excited. You know, he's shown them and revealed to the disciples that he is the Messiah. And so they're like, yes, this is what we've been long awaited. And then Jesus kind of kills the mood by saying, yeah, and when I get to Jerusalem, you guys think I'm going to become crowned king and I'm going to renew Israel and this is going to be great. Well, I'm going to do all those things, but it's not going to happen the way you think. I'm actually going to be handed over to the scribes, the Pharisees, tortured, afflicted, and then killed. But on the third day, I'll be raised up. And that seems like, Jesus is kind of giving them a bit of a downer. And then we have the reading from Ecclesiastes, vanity of vanities. There's a time for everything, a time to be born, a time to die, right? And then the question comes, what advantage has the worker from all his toil, right? So, this is where the perspective of Solomon, all this toil and labor, what good does it do? And then yet, in the midst of this complaint about a time for everything, there's this great paradox in the midst of, there's all these seasons, a time to work, a time to rest, a time for marrying, a time for war. And what you get is this one little line that God has made everything appropriate for its time, right? And he's then done something else, right? You would think, okay, it's kind of natural, everything has its place. And then God does something that's really radical. And he put timelessness. In other words, he put eternity into their hearts. And so you have humanity that has a season of, infancy and being born, childhood, maturity, adulthood, old age. And yet, that seems pretty natural, pretty much the way of the world. Man is not different from the beasts or the birds, so to speak. And yet, here's the one curveball God does in creating man. He puts eternity into our hearts. And that's what he's done to you, right? You have a natural life, right? You were born, have a childhood, adolescence, adulthood maybe, and yet God has put something in your heart that is outside of this world, that the beasts and the birds, the plants don't have. He's put in your heart eternity, a timelessness. We have an immortal soul, right? And so that makes us, in a sense, our heart doesn't fit. Our heart's bigger. Our soul is bigger than this world and this life. And this life and the things in it can't satisfy our deepest heart and our deepest soul and what our soul really desires. And so, and it goes on saying, without man's ever discovering from beginning to end the work which God has done. And what's the work that God has done? The work he's done in the world, but even the deeper work he's done in our soul. Our soul is a bottomless pit, so to speak, that we cannot fathom. We can't understand and plumb the depths of our own soul because God has made it so deep and he's put timelessness in it. And he put eternity into it. And then we reflect with Psalm 144, man is like a breath, his days are passing like a shadow, to remind us that, not to despair, but this world is passing and we're made for something more. And that is where we have the pointer of hope. Jesus too will die to deal with the problem of death, but then he also tells his disciples that he will be raised up on the third day. And so we're not to despair, but to hope. We're to have the wisdom that this world is short and passing, but not to despair, but rather to hope in the eternal life that God has called us for, knowing that he's made us for eternity because he's put that timelessness into our hearts. And then we have to have the trust and faith that he will bring us to eternity with him in the resurrection from the dead. A lot to ponder today. May the Lord bless and keep you.
This daily reflection is brought to you thanks to the generous support of the Mission Circle. Join the Mission Circle to help Catholics worldwide understand, live, and share their faith. Sign up at missioncircle.org today.